The words hit me like a slap across the face, but I didn't flinch. I couldn't, not in front of her. Not when Patricia Montgomery stood in my living room in my house, with that practiced smile that never quite reached her cold blue eyes, telling me that her precious son deserved better than me. Better than me. Me. I felt my throat tighten, that familiar burn behind my eyes that I'd learned to suppress years ago. The same burn I felt when I was the only black girl in my prep school classes. The same burn when colleagues assumed I was the assistant, not the executive. The same burn when store clerks followed me around like I didn't belong in spaces I could buy twice over. But this was different. This wasn't a stranger. This was family. Or at least it was supposed to be. Excuse me? I managed to keep my voice steady, though my heart was hammering against my ribcage like it wanted to escape the humiliation my body was enduring. Patricia adjusted the massive diamond on her finger, the one she never failed to mention cost more than most people's cars, and gave me that look, that pitying, condescending look that said she was doing me a favor by being honest. Oh, Janelle, don't be so sensitive. I'm just saying that Marcus has always been destined for greatness. He comes from a certain caliber of family. Surely you understand that sometimes love isn't enough? There it was, the word she'd been dancing around for 3 years, the word that really meant, you're not one of us, the word that meant my degrees didn't matter, my success didn't matter, my love for her son didn't matter. Because at the end of the day, I would never have the one thing that mattered to Patricia Montgomery, the right skin color and the right pedigree. I thought back to our wedding day, 3 years ago, how she'd worn white to her son's wedding, as if to compete with me, the bride. How she'd cried during our vows, but not happy tears. Tears that said, I'm losing my son, to her. How she'd pulled Marcus aside at the reception, and I'd watched them have a heated conversation near the bar, her grabbing his arm, him shaking his head, both of them glancing my way. I should have known then, but I was so in love, so hopeful, so naive in thinking that love could conquer prejudice, that time would soften her heart, that proving myself would be enough. It was never going to be enough. Marcus has never complained about our marriage. I said carefully, setting down the coffee cup I'd been holding before I threw it. Perhaps you should ask him how he feels instead of speaking for him. Oh, honey, she laughed, actually laughed, like I was a child who didn't understand how the world worked. Marcus would never admit it. He's too kind, too loyal. That's his weakness, really. He sees the best in everyone, even when, she gestured vaguely at me, as if I were a stain she was too polite to name directly. Even when the match isn't quite right. The match isn't quite right, as if we were furniture pieces that clashed. As if 3 years of marriage, of building a life together, of supporting each other through career changes and family losses and dreams achieved and deferred, as if all of that could be reduced to not being quite right. What exactly do you mean by not quite right, Patricia? I stood up, my 5'9" frame suddenly feeling every inch of its height. Please, enlighten me. What about me isn't right for your son? She had the audacity to look uncomfortable, like I was being inappropriate for asking her to say out loud what she'd been implying for years. It's not about you personally, dear. It's about compatibility, background, family legacy. Marcus is a Montgomery. The Montgomerys have been influential in this city for 5 generations. His father was a judge. His grandfather was a senator. We have certain standards, expectations. Okay, standards, expectations. Pretty words for prejudice. Dressed up language for, you're black and we're not, and that's all that really matters. I thought about all the family dinners where she'd seat me at the end of the table, far from Marcus. All the family photos where she'd somehow position herself between us. All the times she'd forgotten to invite me to Montgomery family events. All the passive-aggressive comments about my interesting hair when I wore it natural, my bold fashion choices when I wore anything colorful, my unique speaking style when I didn't code switch enough for her comfort. All the times Marcus had said, "She's just old-fashioned, babe. Give her time." All the times I'd swallowed my hurt and smiled and tried harder. All the times I'd made myself smaller, quieter, more palatable, hoping that if I just proved myself enough, she'd finally see me as worthy of her son. And here she was, 3 years into our marriage, telling me it was never going to happen, that I would never be enough, that Marcus deserved better. "Where is Marcus, anyway?" Patricia asked, glancing at her watch. A Patek Philippe, naturally, because Montgomery's didn't wear just any timepiece. I told him I'd stop by to discuss the foundation gala. "We need someone with real event planning experience this year." "Perhaps I can recommend someone to help you, dear, since you'll be expected to co-host as Marcus's wife." There it was again, the subtle jab, the implication that I couldn't possibly manage something as important as the Montgomery Family Foundation Gala without her guidance and connections. Never mind that I'd planned corporate events for Fortune 500 companies. Never mind that I'd coordinated international conferences with thousands of attendees. Never mind my actual job, my actual expertise, my actual accomplishments. To Patricia Montgomery, I would always be the girl who wasn't good enough for her son. "Marcus is at the office," I said, my voice colder now. "He'll be home later. But since you're here, Patricia, perhaps we should have a conversation that's long overdue." She raised one perfectly microbladed eyebrow. "Oh, yes." I walked to the bar cart, the one I'd selected, in the home I'd purchased, in the neighborhood I'd chosen, and poured myself a glass of wine. I didn't offer her one. "I've been very patient with you over the years, very understanding. I've made excuses for your behavior, given you the benefit of the doubt, tried to build a relationship with you, despite your obvious disapproval of me. Janelle, I don't know what you're—" "Let me finish." My voice cut through the room like a knife, and for the first time I saw something flicker in Patricia's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or was it respect? "I've tolerated your comments about my hair, my clothes, my career, my friends, my family. I've smiled through your jokes about Marcus marrying down. I've pretended not to notice when you exclude me from family events or talk over me at dinner or forget my birthday every single year while making a spectacle of Marcus's." Patricia's face was growing red, but I wasn't done. 3 years of silence were erupting out of me like a volcano that had been dormant too long. "I've watched you try to undermine my marriage at every turn, suggesting that Marcus work late on our anniversary, accidentally, booking him for family obligations on our planned vacations, constantly mentioning his ex-girlfriend. What was her name? Brooke? The one who was so accomplished and came from such a lovely family? Yes, I've noticed all of that too. Now wait just a minute." "No, Patricia, you wait. You came into my home today and told me my husband deserves better than me. So let's talk about what Marcus actually deserves." My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. Years of board meetings and hostile negotiations had taught me how to channel anger into power, how to turn hurt into ammunition. Marcus deserves a wife who loves him unconditionally, which I do. He deserves a partner who supports his dreams, which I do. He deserves someone who sees him for who he is, not just as an extension of a family legacy, which, might I add, seems to be something you struggle with, Patricia. You don't see Marcus as a person. You see him as a trophy, a nameplate, a continuation of your precious Montgomery line. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. I'd never spoken to her like this. No one probably ever had. The mighty Patricia Montgomery, philanthropist and socialite, accustomed to deference and admiration, was being called out in someone else's home by someone she considered beneath her. And I was just getting started. "You want to talk about what Marcus deserves?" I continued, my voice gaining strength with each word. "Then let's talk about what he actually has. Let's talk about the reality of this marriage, that you've spent 3 years trying to undermine. I set down my wine glass and walked to my home office, feeling Patricia's confused gaze following me. My heart was pounding, but there was also a strange calm settling over me, a clarity. This conversation was 3 years overdue, and I was done shrinking myself to fit into her narrow view of who I should be. When I returned, I was carrying a leather portfolio, the kind used for important documents, the kind that held papers that changed lives. "You know what's funny, Patricia?" I said, running my fingers over the smooth leather. "You've made so many assumptions about me over the years, about who I am, where I come from, what I bring to this marriage, and Marcus, sweet, conflict-avoidant Marcus. He's let you believe whatever you wanted to believe because confronting you is like trying to move a mountain. I don't appreciate your tone. And I don't appreciate being told I'm not good enough for your son in my own home," I shot back. "But here we are. So let's clear up some of those assumptions, shall we?" Patricia crossed her arms, her designer handbag clutched against her chest like a shield. "I don't know what you think you're going to prove." "Everything," I said simply. "I'm going to prove everything." I sat down across from her, the portfolio resting on my lap. "You've spent 3 years treating me like some gold digger who trapped your son. Like I saw Montgomery and saw dollar signs. Like I needed to marry into your family for status or money or security. Haven't you?" She had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable, but she didn't deny it. That was answer enough. "Do you even know what I do for a living, Patricia? My actual job title?" "You work in corporate something," she said dismissively. "Event planning, consulting, one of those things." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Meridian Tech Solutions. We're a cybersecurity firm that contracts with Fortune 100 companies and government agencies. I oversee operations for a company with 2,000 employees across 12 countries. My division alone generated $340 million in revenue last year." Patricia's expression shifted slightly, a crack in her armor of superiority. "But let me guess," I continued, "you've never asked about my career, never expressed interest in what I do, because in your world, it doesn't matter what I've accomplished. It only matters that I'm not a Montgomery by birth, that I didn't come from your caliber of family. Success isn't just about money." "You're right," I interrupted. "It's also about legacy, about family. So let me tell you about mine, since you've never bothered to ask." I leaned forward, my eyes locked on hers. "My father, Robert Chen Williams, is a cardiovascular surgeon. He's performed over 3,000 open-heart surgeries and pioneered a technique that's now used in hospitals worldwide. My mother, Dr. Angela Williams, is a professor of African American Studies at Columbia University. She's written 4 books and advised 2 presidential administrations on education policy." Patricia's face was changing now, the condescension slowly draining away, replaced by something else. Uncertainty, maybe. Or the dawning realization that she'd completely misjudged who she was dealing with. My maternal grandfather was one of the first Black federal judges appointed in the South. My paternal grandmother was a civil rights attorney who argued 2 cases before the Supreme Court. My uncle is a Rhodes Scholar and currently serves as the CEO of a pharmaceutical company. My aunt is a Pulitzer Prize-nominated journalist. I paused, letting that sink in. "So when you talk about caliber and legacy and family background, Patricia, you should know that my family has been breaking barriers and changing the world while your family was, what? Collecting old money and attending charity galas? That's not fair." "Fair?" I stood up, my voice rising. "You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that you've treated me like an outsider from day one? Is it fair that you've never once acknowledged my accomplishments or my family's contributions? Is it fair that you've spent 3 years making me feel like I should be grateful that Marcus chose me, when the truth is," I stopped myself, taking a breath. This was the moment. The moment to reveal what Patricia had been too blind to see, too prejudiced to investigate, too arrogant to even consider. When the truth is, I said more quietly, but with steel in my voice, Marcus should be grateful that I chose him. Patricia actually laughed at that, a sharp, disbelieving sound. Oh, please. Marcus is a Montgomery. He's a successful attorney at one of the most prestigious firms in the city. He makes $285,000 a year. I finished for her, which is excellent. I'm very proud of him. He works hard. I opened the portfolio and pulled out a document. My tax return from the previous year. I made $1.2 million last year, plus stock options worth another $3 million that vest over the next 4 years, plus a performance bonus structure that could add another $500,000 annually. The color drained from Patricia's face. This house? I gestured around us. The one you've been sitting in, criticizing everything from my decor choices to my coffee selection, I bought it. Before Marcus and I got married, with my money. The deed is in my name. I pulled out another document. This vacation home in Turks and Caicos that you assumed was a Montgomery family property because we invited you there last Christmas? Mine. Purchased with my bonus from 2023. Another document. The art collection you admired, or rather, condescendingly commented on, suggesting I'd chosen interesting pieces, appraised at $750,000. I started collecting when I was 25, long before I met your son. Patricia was gripping the arm of the sofa now, her knuckles white. Marcus never said, because Marcus is a good man who doesn't measure love by bank statements, unlike his mother apparently. I pulled out more papers. My investment portfolio, $4.2 million across stocks, bonds, and real estate. My retirement accounts, $1.8 million. The trust fund my grandparents established for me when I was born, $6 million, which I haven't touched because I've never needed to. I watched as Patricia tried to process this information, her worldview crumbling around her like a house of cards in a windstorm. So when you say Marcus deserves better, I said, my voice steady but filled with an emotion I'd been suppressing for 3 years, what exactly do you mean? Better than a woman who's financially independent? Better than a woman who brings more assets to the marriage than he does? Better than a woman who could have had her pick of successful men but chose your son because she actually loved him? I didn't. I had no idea, Patricia stammered, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked genuinely shaken. Of course you didn't, because you never asked. You saw a black woman and you assumed. You assumed I needed Marcus. You assumed I was climbing some social ladder. You assumed I was the lucky one in this relationship. I gathered the documents back into the portfolio, my hands steady now, the trembling rage transformed into something colder and more controlled. I want to know, the really ironic thing, Patricia? I actually loved you, or at least I loved the idea of you. I lost my grandmother 2 years before I met Marcus, and I thought maybe, just maybe, I could find that kind of maternal warmth in you. I tried so hard to make you like me, to make you see me, to make you proud. My voice cracked slightly, and I hated myself for it. I hated that even now, even after everything, part of me still wanted her approval, still wanted to be accepted into the family I'd married into. But you never gave me a chance, I continued. You decided who I was before you ever knew me. And nothing I did was ever going to change your mind, because you didn't want to change your mind. You wanted me to fail. You wanted to be right about me being wrong for Marcus. Patricia opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Janelle, if you had known what? You would have treated me differently? You would have respected me? What does that say about you, Patricia? That you only value people based on their net worth? That you only show respect when someone's bank account demands it? She flinched at that, and I saw something flash across her face. shame, maybe, or recognition of an ugly truth she'd been avoiding. The saddest part, I said, is that we could have had a real relationship. I would have been there for you. I would have cared for you. I would have made sure you were part of our lives, our future children's lives, our family. But you were so busy trying to prove I wasn't good enough that you never stopped to see who I actually am. I walked to the window, looking out at the garden I'd spent months cultivating. The rose bushes I'd planted, the stone pathway I'd designed, the fountain I'd commissioned from a local artist. All of it mine. All of it built with my own hands, my own money, my own vision. Marcus doesn't know I'm having this conversation with you, I said, still looking out the window. He doesn't know you came here today and finally said out loud what you've been implying for years. And honestly, I don't know if I'm going to tell him. I turned back to face her, because despite everything, Patricia, I love your son. I love him enough to have endured 3 years of your subtle cruelty. I love him enough to have smiled through your condescension. I love him enough to have tried to build a bridge to you, even when you were burning it from the other side. Patricia was crying now, silent tears running down her carefully made-up face, mascara leaving dark trails on her cheeks. I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sadness. This wasn't how I'd wanted things to go. This wasn't the family I dreamed of having. But here's what's going to change, I said, my voice firm again. You're going to decide right now what kind of relationship you want with us moving forward. If you want to be part of our lives, really part of our lives, then you need to see me. Actually see me, not as some obstacle or mistake or wrong turn your son made, but as his wife, as his partner, as his equal. I walked back to where she sat and stood over her, not menacingly, but with a presence I'd earned through years of navigating boardrooms and hostile negotiations. And if you can't do that, if you can't let go of your prejudices and your assumptions and your need to control Marcus's life, then you need to step back, because I won't continue to subject myself to this. I won't continue to shrink myself to make you comfortable, and I won't let you poison my marriage with your disapproval. Patricia wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara further. She looked smaller somehow, diminished, the powerful matriarch reduced to just another person confronting their own biases. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything right now, I replied, my voice gentler but still firm. But you need to think about it, really think about it, because the next time you see Marcus, the next time you see us together, I need to know that you understand who you're dealing with. Not some gold digger, not some social climber, but a woman who has built her own empire and chose to share it with your son. I moved toward the door, opening it in a clear gesture of dismissal. I think you should go now, Patricia. Take some time to process this, and when you're ready to have a real conversation, one based on mutual respect instead of condescension, you know where to find me. She stood on shaky legs, gathering her handbag, her composure shattered. As she walked toward the door, she paused, turning back to look at me. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I think I've been very, very wrong about you. Yes, I agreed. You have been. The question is, what are you going to do about it? She didn't answer, just walked out into the afternoon sun, leaving me standing in my doorway, in my house, in the life I'd built with my own 2 hands. And I realized something as I watched her drive away. I didn't need her validation anymore. I'd been seeking approval from someone who was never going to give it freely, trying to prove myself to someone who had already decided I wasn't worthy. But I was worthy. I had always been worthy. And whether Patricia Montgomery could see that or not was her problem, not mine. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart still racing, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The silence of the house felt different now, not empty, but mine, truly mine. I'd stood my ground, spoken my truth, and for the first time in 3 years, I hadn't apologized for existing in a space I'd earned. But I knew Patricia. I'd watched her operate for 3 years. She wasn't the type to simply accept defeat and slink away. And Montgomery's didn't lose gracefully. They regrouped, strategized, and came back with reinforcements. I was right. 2 days later, Marcus came home from work with a strange expression on his face. Not quite angry, not quite confused, something in between. He set his briefcase down with more force than necessary, loosened his tie, and poured himself a scotch. At 6 p.m. on a Wednesday. That alone told me everything I needed to know. "My mother called me today," he said, not looking at me. "Actually, she called me 12 times. Then she showed up at my office. I set down the contract I'd been reviewing." "I see." She was upset. He finally looked at me, his hazel eyes searching my face. "She said you two had a conversation. A confrontation, actually. She said you showed her documents, financial documents, tax returns." My stomach tightened, but I kept my voice calm. "She came to our home and told me you deserved better than me. So yes, we had a conversation that was long overdue." Marcus ran his hand through his dark hair, a gesture he made when he was stressed. "Janelle, why didn't you tell me about everything you showed her? I knew you did well, but I had no idea about all of it, the extent of it." And there it was, the question I'd been dreading. Not, "Why did my mother say that to you?" Not, "Are you okay?" But, "Why didn't you tell me how much money you have?" "Does it matter?" I asked quietly. "Of course it matters. We're married. We're supposed to share everything. Be transparent. And you've been, what, hiding your assets from me?" I felt something crack inside my chest. After everything, after 3 years of defending our relationship to his mother, of trying to fit into his family, of making myself smaller, he was making this about my supposed deception? "I wasn't hiding anything, Marcus," I said, my voice colder now. "I was protecting myself." "Protecting yourself? From me, your husband? From disappointment," I shot back. "From being reduced to a bank account. From being valued for the wrong reasons." He stared at me, and I saw the hurt flash across his face. Good. Maybe now he'd understand a fraction of what I'd been feeling. "You want to talk about transparency?" I stood up, feeling the anger from 2 days ago reigniting. "Let's talk about how your mother has been trying to destroy our marriage since before we even said I do, and you've just let her. Let's talk about how you've never once defended me when she makes her little comments. Let's talk about how you tell me to give her time and she's just old-fashioned instead of standing up to her. That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed bitterly. "Your mother told me in this house that you deserved better than me. She implied I wasn't good enough for you because of my race, my background, my everything. And when I finally showed her exactly who she's been disrespecting, suddenly I'm the bad guy for not disclosing my financial portfolio to my husband." Marcus set down his drink, his jaw clenched. "You're twisting this. My mother was wrong. She knows she was wrong. She called me crying, Janelle. Crying. She's devastated." "Good," I said flatly. "Maybe she'll think twice before telling another woman she's not good enough for her precious son. But you shouldn't have thrown your money in her face like that. It was cruel." I felt like I'd been slapped. Cruel? Standing up for myself is cruel? Showing your mother that her assumptions about me were completely wrong is cruel? Tell me, Marcus, what should I have done? Should I have just smiled and nodded while she told me I wasn't worthy of you? Should I have thanked her for her honesty? "You could have come to me first." "And you would have done what?" I challenged. "What you always do? Tell me she doesn't mean it? Make excuses for her? Ask me to be patient?" I've been patient for 3 years, Marcus. 3 years of being treated like an outsider in my own marriage because you won't set boundaries with your mother. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He had no answer because we both knew it was true. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. This was the moment where marriages either broke or transformed, where comfortable lies either gave way to uncomfortable truths or hardened into permanent resentments. "There's something else, isn't there?" Marcus finally said, his voice quieter now. My mother mentioned a prenup. She said you referenced a prenuptial agreement, but we don't have one. My heart stopped, then started again, beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. Oh, Patricia. Clever, vindictive Patricia. She'd been listening more carefully than I'd realized. I hadn't explicitly mentioned the prenup during our confrontation, but I'd implied enough. And now, she'd taken that information and weaponized it, sending her son home to question me, to doubt me, to wonder what else I was hiding. I walked to my office, the room Marcus rarely entered, respecting my need for a private workspace, and retrieved a document from my filing cabinet. The document? The one I'd hoped I'd never have to explain. When I returned to the living room, Marcus was sitting on the couch, his head in his hands. He looked up when he heard me, and I saw the confusion and hurt and betrayal all mixed together on his face. "We do have a prenup," I said, holding the document. "You signed it 3 days before our wedding." His face went pale. "What? No, I would have remembered." "It was in the stack of papers my attorney had you sign. The marriage license, the insurance documents, the beneficiary forms for my retirement accounts. Remember? You signed everything in John's office while I was getting my final dress fitting." Understanding dawned on his face, followed quickly by anger. "You hid a prenuptial agreement in a stack of routine paperwork? Are you serious right now?" "I didn't hide it," I said, though we both knew that was a lie, or at least a half-truth. It was clearly labeled. "You just didn't read it carefully. Because I trusted you." He stood up, his voice rising. "Because I was about to marry you, and I thought we were building a life together based on trust and love, not legal protections and financial strategizing. And I was protecting myself," I shouted back. "I was protecting everything I built before I met you, everything my family had built, everything I'd worked for. Because I've seen what happens when marriages end, Marcus. I've seen how people change when money is involved. I've seen how families tear each other apart in divorce courts. So you thought I would do that? You thought I married you for your money?" "I thought you didn't know about my money," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "I thought you loved me for me, not for what I had, and I wanted to keep it that way." Marcus stared at the document in my hands like it was a snake. "What does it say?" I took a breath. This was it. The moment of truth. The moment where everything I'd carefully constructed either held together or collapsed. It says that in the event of a divorce, all assets brought into the marriage by either party remain with that party. All assets acquired during the marriage are split according to contribution percentages, which are documented through our separate accounts. It includes a detailed inventory of my premarital assets and a clause protecting my family trust from any claims. "And my assets? Also protected," I said. "Whatever you brought into the marriage stays yours. Your inheritance from your grandfather, your trust fund, everything. It works both ways, Marcus." He laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "Except I didn't bring anywhere near what you did. This isn't protection. This is insurance against me, against my family." "Yes," I admitted, "it is." The honesty seemed to stun him. He sat back down, the fight draining out of him. "Why, Janelle? If you loved me, if you wanted to marry me, why did you need this?" I sat down across from him, the document still in my hands. "Because 3 days before our wedding, your mother came to see me." His head snapped up. "What? She came to my apartment. You were at your bachelor party in Vegas. She let herself in with the key you'd given her for emergencies." I remembered that day with painful clarity, the knock on the door, Patricia's smile that didn't reach her eyes, the envelope she'd handed me. "She offered me money to leave you," I continued, watching Marcus's face cycle through disbelief, anger, and horror. $500,000, a check already written, already signed. She said it was enough to start over somewhere else. She said Marcus would get over it, that I was a phase, that she was saving her son from a terrible mistake. "No," Marcus whispered. "No, she wouldn't. She couldn't." "I can show you the check," I said. "I kept it. I never cashed it, obviously. but I kept it as a reminder of what your family really thought of me, what they still think of me. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photo I'd taken that day. The check made out to me, signed in Patricia Montgomery's distinctive handwriting. $500,000 to disappear from her son's life. Marcus stared at the image, his face ashen. Why didn't you tell me? We could have called off the wedding. We could have confronted her. Because I loved you, I said simply. And I knew that if I told you, you'd have to choose between me and your mother. And I wasn't sure which one you'd choose. That hit him like a physical blow. He looked at me with something like devastation in his eyes. You thought I'd choose her over you? I didn't know, I admitted. We'd only been together 18 months. You'd known her your whole life. She's your mother, Marcus. She raised you. She shaped you. And I was the new variable, the one that didn't fit into her perfect plan for your life. I set the prenup on the coffee table between us. So yes, I had my attorney draw up a prenuptial agreement. And yes, I had you sign it without explicitly explaining what it was. Because I needed to know that if everything fell apart, if your mother succeeded in destroying our marriage, if you woke up one day and decided she was right about me, I wouldn't lose everything I'd worked for. I wouldn't be left with nothing. Marcus picked up the document with shaking hands, reading through it for the first time, really reading it. I watched his eyes move across the pages, taking in the clauses, the protections, the detailed inventory of my assets, the evidence of just how much I'd been worth when I'd married him. The proof that I'd never needed the Montgomery name or the Montgomery money or anything the Montgomerys had to offer except him. $15 million, he finally said, his voice barely audible. You were worth $15 million when we got married, and now? Effie. Now it's closer to $22 million, I finished. My company went public last year. My stock options appreciated significantly, and I've made some good investments. Pete, he set down the prenup and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. And what am I worth, Janelle? In this document, what does it say I brought to the marriage? And P, I didn't need to look at the document to answer. Your trust fund, $3 million. Your grandfather's inheritance, $1.2 million. Your retirement accounts, $450,000. Your car, $85,000. Your Rolex collection, $250,000. Total, approximately $5 million. So, when my mother said you deserved better, he laughed again. That same hollow sound. She had no idea how right she was, just not the way she meant. Marcus? No, it's true, isn't it? He stood up, pacing now. You could have married anyone. Some tech billionaire, some venture capitalist, someone from your own caliber of wealth and success. But you chose me, a regular attorney, making a quarter of what you make. And then you protected yourself, because you knew that my family would try to destroy you, that my mother would try to buy you off, that I might not be strong enough to defend you. That's not, isn't it? He turned to face me, and I saw tears at his eyes. Isn't that exactly what this is? You loved me, but you didn't trust me. You married me, but you hedged your bets. And now, 3 years later, you've been proven right. Because my mother did try to destroy you, and I wasn't there. I wasn't there when she made her comments, when she excluded you, when she showed up at our home and told you that you weren't good enough. I wasn't there. The tears were falling now, and I felt my own eyes burning. I never wanted you to see this document, Marcus. I never wanted you to know about the check, about the prenup, about any of it. I wanted us to just be happy. I wanted to believe that love was enough. But it's not, is it? He wiped his eyes roughly. Love isn't enough when there's this much inequality, this much power imbalance, this much distance between us. There is no distance between us, I said fiercely, standing up and grabbing his arms. There is no inequality in how we feel about each other. Yes, I have more money. Yes, I protected my assets, but that doesn't change the fact that I chose you. Out of all the people I could have been with, I chose you. Because you made me laugh. Because you saw me as a person, not a portfolio. Because when we met at that charity gala, you spent 2 hours talking to me about architecture and travel and terrible action movies, and you never once asked what I did for a living or how much I made. He was looking at me now, really looking at me, and I saw the man I'd fallen in love with beneath the hurt and confusion. You chose me because I didn't know, he said slowly, because I didn't care about the money. I chose you because you cared about me, I corrected. The real me. Not the COO, not the trust fund baby, not the woman with the impressive pedigree. Just Janelle. The woman who quotes terrible movies and burns toast and cries at dog videos and stays up too late reading thriller novels. A small smile tugged at his lips, despite everything. You do cry at a lot of dog videos. They're very emotional. I protested, and suddenly we were both laughing and crying at the same time, the tension breaking like a fever. Marcus pulled me into his arms, holding me tight. I'm sorry, he whispered into my hair. I'm so sorry I wasn't there, that I didn't see what she was doing to you, that I made excuses for her instead of defending you. I'm sorry I didn't trust you enough to tell you everything. I whispered back, I'm sorry I let my fear make decisions for me. We stood there, holding each other in our living room, in our house, in the life we'd built together. And slowly, I felt something shift. Not breaking, but transforming. Growing into something stronger, more honest, more real. So what now? Marcus asked finally, pulling back to look at me. Where do we go from here? I thought about Patricia, about the check, about the prenup. About 3 years of silence and swallowed pain. And I thought about what I really wanted from this marriage, from this man, from this life. Now, I said, we have a conversation with your mother. Together, both of us. And we set some boundaries, real boundaries, about how she treats me, how she treats us, and what happens if she crosses those lines. Marcus nodded slowly. And if she can't accept those boundaries, then we limit her access to our lives, I said firmly, because I'm not doing this anymore. Marcus, I'm not spending the next 30 years trying to prove myself to someone who's determined not to see my worth. And I won't raise our future children around someone who thinks their mother isn't good enough. Future children? He repeated, a small smile crossing his face. You still want that, with me, after all this? Of course I do, I said. You're my husband. You're my partner. You're the person I want to build a life with. But I need to know that you're with me, really with me. Not just in the good times, but when your mother is making her comments, or your family is being difficult, or society is reminding us that we're an interracial couple, in a world that still has opinions about that. I'm with you, he said immediately. I should have shown you that before, but I'm showing you now. I'm with you, Janelle, completely, and it's time my mother learned that. I picked up the prenup from where it lay on the coffee table. And this? What do you want to do about this? Marcus looked at the document, then at me. Keep it. It's already signed, already filed, already done. And honestly, he smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. I'm glad you protected yourself. I'm glad you were smart enough to see what I was too blind to see. And I'm glad that when this marriage works, because it is going to work, Janelle, it won't be because either of us was trapped by finances or fear. It'll be because we chose each other. Every day. For better or worse. For richer or poorer, I added with a slight smile. Though in this case, definitely for richer. He laughed, and I heard the tension dissolving. My wife, the multimillionaire. My mother is going to have a stroke when she processes this. About that, I said, pulling out my phone, I think it's time we invited your mother over for dinner. A family meeting, where we clear the air once and for all. Marcus took a deep breath. Okay, but I'm doing the talking this time. I'm setting the boundaries. You fought this battle alone for too long. I felt something warm bloom in my chest. Hope, maybe, or trust, or just love, the kind that grows stronger when it's tested and survives. Together, I said, We do it together. He took my hand, lacing his fingers through mine. Together, and for the first time in 3 years, I truly believed that we would be okay, that we would survive this. That love, combined with honesty and boundaries and mutual respect, really could be enough. But first, we had to face Patricia Montgomery one more time, and this time, she was going to see exactly who she'd been dealing with all along. 3 days later, Patricia arrived at our home exactly on time, dressed impeccably as always, but there was something different about her. She looked smaller somehow, less certain. The armor of superiority she usually wore was cracked, and I could see the woman underneath, scared, perhaps of losing her son, of being wrong, of having to change. Marcus had insisted on hosting her in the formal dining room rather than the casual living room. He'd set the table himself, just 3 place settings, no one else to witness this conversation. No escape routes, no audience to perform for. I'd dressed carefully, a simple but expensive cashmere sweater, tailored pants, my grandmother's pearl earrings, not trying to impress, but not diminishing myself either. Just me. Take it or leave it. "Thank you for coming, Mom," Marcus said as she sat down. His voice was formal, controlled. I'd never heard him use that tone with her before. "Of course," Patricia said quietly. She looked at me, her eyes red-rimmed as if she'd been crying. "Janelle, thank you for having me in your home." Your home. Not the house or this place. Your home. It was a small acknowledgement. But it was something. Marcus didn't waste time with pleasantries. He pulled out a folder, his own preparation for this meeting, and set it on the table. "Mom, we need to talk about some things that have been going on for the past 3 years, and we need you to listen without interrupting. Can you do that?" Patricia nodded, her hands folded in her lap like a chastened child. "First," Marcus continued, his voice steady but laced with steel I'd rarely heard, "Janelle told me about the check. The $500,000 you offered her 3 days before our wedding." Patricia's face crumbled. "Marcus, You agreed not to interrupt," he said sharply, "so don't." She closed her mouth, tears beginning to flow. "You tried to bribe my wife to leave me. You tried to pay her off like she was some kind of problem that could be solved with money. And when that didn't work, you spent 3 years trying to undermine our marriage, making snide comments, excluding her from family events, treating her like she was beneath us, beneath you. I thought I was protecting you," Patricia whispered. "No," Marcus said firmly. "You were projecting your own prejudices onto our relationship. You saw a black woman and you assumed she was after the Montgomery money. You assumed she needed us. You assumed wrong." He opened the folder and slid a paper across to her. "This is Janelle's financial portfolio, her real one, with more detail than what she showed you the other day. I want you to look at it, really look at it, and then I want you to understand something." Patricia picked up the paper with shaking hands, her eyes scanning the numbers. I watched her face as the reality settled in. The same reality I'd shown her before, but now presented by her son, made official, made undeniable. "Janelle didn't need our money," Marcus continued. "She didn't need our name. She didn't need anything from the Montgomery family except acceptance. And you couldn't even give her that. Instead, you tried to buy her off with a fraction of what she's actually worth. You insulted her, demeaned her, and questioned her worthiness when she was always, always too good for us. Marcus, I'm not finished." His voice softened slightly, but the steel remained. "Here's what's going to happen now. You have a choice to make. You can accept Janelle as my wife, truly accept her, with respect and dignity and genuine inclusion. Or you can remove yourself from our lives. Those are your 2 options. There is no middle ground. There are no more passive-aggressive comments disguised as concern. There are no more jokes about me marrying down. There are no more forgotten invitations or convenient scheduling conflicts." He reached across the table and took my hand. "Janelle is my wife. She's my partner. She's the woman I chose and who chose me. And any disrespect to her is disrespect to me. Any attempt to undermine her is an attempt to undermine our marriage. Any failure to treat her as a full member of this family will result in you having no access to this family at all." Patricia was openly crying now, her carefully applied makeup running down her face. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I was wrong. About everything. About Janelle. About what she wanted. About who she was. I let my own fears and prejudices blind me to the amazing woman my son married." She looked at me directly for the first time, and I saw genuine remorse in her eyes. "Janelle, I have no excuse for my behavior. I can't even explain it in a way that makes sense because it was never rational. It was racism, plain and simple. I told myself it was about protecting Marcus, about maintaining family standards, about tradition. But it was just racism, fear of change, fear of losing control, fear of admitting that my son's happiness didn't depend on checking boxes I'd decided were important. I said nothing, just waited. Words were easy, actions were what mattered. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," Patricia continued, her voice breaking. "I don't expect it. But I'm asking, no, I'm begging, for a chance to do better, to be better, to prove that I can be the mother-in-law you deserved from the beginning." Marcus squeezed my hand, leaving the decision to me. This was my call, my boundary to set, my terms to establish. I took a breath, thinking about everything that had brought us to this moment. The pain, the anger, the loneliness of being excluded from my own family. But also the strength I'd found in standing up for myself. The clarity that came from refusing to shrink anymore. "If we do this," I said slowly, "if we give you this chance, there will be rules, non-negotiable rules." Patricia nodded eagerly. "Anything, whatever you need. First," I held up one finger, "you will never, ever make a comment about my race, my background, my appearance, or my worthiness again. Not to me, not to Marcus, not to anyone. If you have a problem with something I do or say, you address it with me directly and respectfully." "Yes," she agreed immediately. "Second," another finger, "you will include me in all family events, holidays and gatherings, not as an afterthought or an obligation, but as Marcus's wife and an equal member of this family. That means asking my opinion, respecting my traditions, and making space for both of our cultures in family celebrations. Of course." Third, I held her gaze steadily. "You will go to therapy. Real therapy with a counselor who specializes in racial bias and family dynamics. And you'll do the work. Not just show up, but actually do the uncomfortable work of examining your prejudices and changing your patterns." Patricia flinched but nodded. "I will, I promise. And fourth," I said, my voice softer now, but no less firm, "if Marcus and I have children, you will treat them with absolute equality. You will not make them feel less than because of their mixed heritage. You will not make comments about their hair, their skin, or which side of the family they resemble. You will love them completely, or you will not be in their lives at all." "I swear to you," Patricia said, reaching across the table toward me. I didn't take her hand, not yet. "I swear on everything I hold dear, I will love those children with everything I have, and I will make sure they never feel what I made you feel." I looked at Marcus, who nodded slightly. This was my decision, but he supported whatever I chose. "Okay," I said finally. "We'll try. But Patricia, understand this. You get one chance. One. If you violate these boundaries, if you slip back into old patterns, if you ever make me feel less than again, we're done. You won't get another conversation, another explanation, another opportunity. You'll just be cut off, completely." "I understand," she whispered, "and thank you. Thank you for giving me this chance when I don't deserve it." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything that had been said settling over us like snow. "There's one more thing," Marcus said, pulling out another paper from his folder. "Janelle showed me the check you gave her. The $500,000. Patricia closed her eyes, shame written across her face. "She never cashed it," Marcus continued. She kept it as a reminder. But she never took your money. However, I think we should do something with it. He slid the paper toward his mother. This is information about a scholarship fund Janelle and I are setting up for young Black women pursuing careers in technology and engineering. We're calling it the Angela Williams Scholarship, after Janelle's mother. Patricia looked at the paper, then at us, confusion and hope mixing on her face. We're seeding it with $500,000, I said. Your $500,000, to be exact. You'll write the check again, but this time it'll go towards supporting young women who look like me, who dream like I dreamed, who face barriers like I faced. You tried to use money to push me away from your son. Now you're going to use money to lift other women up. Understanding dawned on Patricia's face, along with something that looked like gratitude. That's beautiful. I'll write the check today. And you'll attend the scholarship events? Marcus added. You'll meet the recipients. You'll hear their stories. You'll see what Janelle sees, the potential, the brilliance, the worthiness that has nothing to do with who their families are or what they look like. Patricia nodded, wiping her eyes. I will. I'll be there. For all of it. We talked for another hour, about practical things like upcoming holidays, about family dynamics, about how to repair relationships with Marcus's siblings who'd witnessed Patricia's behavior. It wasn't comfortable, and it wasn't easy, but it was honest, real, the beginning of something new maybe, or at least the end of something toxic. When Patricia finally left, she hugged me. It was awkward and tentative, but it was genuine. Thank you, she whispered in my ear. Thank you for loving my son enough to fight for him, for us. For this family. I hugged her back, still guarded, still cautious, but willing to try. Don't thank me yet. Thank me in a year if you've kept your promises. She smiled through her tears. I will. I'll thank you every day for the rest of my life. After she left, Marcus and I stood on our porch, watching the sunset over our garden, over our home, over the life we'd built and defended and chosen. Do you think she'll actually change? He asked, wrapping his arm around my waist. I don't know, I admitted, but I think she'll try. And that's more than we had before. You were incredible in there, he said, kissing my temple. So strong, so clear, so absolutely undeniably, perfectly you. I leaned into him, feeling the warmth of his body, the steadiness of his presence. We were incredible. Together. Together, he agreed. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple and pink, I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Real, genuine hope that maybe, just maybe, we could build the family we'd always dreamed of. One based not on money or status or color, but on respect and love and the courage to demand better. Because I'd finally learned the most important lesson. I didn't need Patricia Montgomery's approval to know my worth. I'd always been enough. I'd always been more than enough. And anyone who couldn't see that, family or not, didn't deserve a place in my life. But for those willing to do the work, willing to change, willing to see me, for them, I'd keep the door open. Not because I needed them, but because I was strong enough, secure enough, and loved enough to give them the chance to do better. And that, in the end, was its own kind of revenge. The best kind. The kind where you win not by destroying your enemies, but by refusing to let them diminish you. By standing tall in your own power and daring them to rise to meet you. By showing them exactly who they've been underestimating. And then is there brave enough and humble enough and willing enough. By giving them the opportunity to grow. That was my revenge. Not cruelty, not exclusion, but the absolute, undeniable, irrefutable truth. And the truth, as it turned out, was the most powerful weapon of all.